This video is the next video in the functions video for Leaving Certificate Mathematics. In particular, this is looking at section 8 of the functions notes, which is focusing on using and interpreting cubic graphs. Cubic graphs and quadratic graphs are very similar in terms of the information we want to get from them. So we always want to get whether they're increasing or decreasing, getting their maximum or minimum values, getting if they're positive or negative, and then figuring out where they cross the x and y axis. So this video is going to look at that, and hopefully if we have done the quadratic graphs and you understand those, this section should be very simple. So if we have our axis, our x-axis, and we have our y-axis, and we have a cubic function similar to this, and if we're told here that we want to figure out where this graph is increasing or decreasing, we know that we always read from left to right. And we definitely know this from when we were looking at quadratic graphs and even linear graphs. So when we're reading from left to right, there's various places where this cubic function is increasing and decreasing. I'm going to draw in red now where this function is increasing. So it's increasing when it's going uphill, and it's going uphill in two places. So where I've drawn in red there, that graph is increasing. Then if you look at where it's decreasing in all other areas. So where I have drawn in green, that's where the graph is decreasing. So again, the red is going uphill, the green is going downhill. I'm hoping that's making sense and it's not too difficult to understand. So the maximum and minimum values of the graph. So the maximum value of the cubic graph is the highest value of y, and the minimum value of the cubic graph is the lowest value of y. And usually when we're given cubic functions and we want to figure out the maximum and minimum values, we'll always be told between 2 points, so two x values. So if I had here x is equal to minus 3, and here I have x is equal to 3. And they ask me, what is the maximum value of this graph between x of minus 3 and x equal to 3? Well, the maximum value there between these 2 points is what I've drawn in here. That would be the maximum point, or the highest the graph goes between those two values. But if it asks for the minimum point between those points, it will be what I have drawn here in green. So I hope that makes sense. So the maximum is the highest point of the graph between 2 points, and the minimum is the lowest value on the graph between 2 points. Then we could be asked to figure out where it's positive and where it's negative. So remembering that a cubic function is negative below the x-axis, and a cubic function is positive above the x-axis. So there's two places, the exact same as a quadratic, and then crossing the x and the y-axis. So when a cubic graph crosses the x-axis, y is equal to 0, and when a cubic graph crosses the y-axis, x is equal to 0. And there's one key point to remember, that when a graph crosses the x-axis, we're looking for the roots of the function. And they can use that question in exams the entire time, asking you where a root of a function might be. So it's really, really important to know what the term root means. And a root just means where the graph crosses the x-axis. So what I'm going to do now is going to go through a few questions which might ask you to do a few of these things, as well as graphing cubic functions. Question 8.1 then is a question from the 2019 Leaving Cert paper. In particular, it's question number 3. And it says, the function f is defined for f of x is equal to minus x cubed plus 4x squared plus x minus 2, where x is an element of OR. Now, we know that OR are our real numbers, and that our real numbers are any number. So A part I says complete the table below for the values of x, where x is between minus 1 and 4, and again it tells us x is an element of OR, and OR again are our real numbers, which is just any number at all. If you can remember the last video went through how to draw cubic curves, so I'm not going to focus too much on part AI. However, if you want, what you can do is you can draw a bigger table on a separate piece of paper, which will give you another column if you're not as confident at drawing the way it is here. However, all you're going to have to do is you'll have to sub minus 1 in for x, 0 in for x, 1 in for x, 2 in for x, and 4 into x. When you sub all of those numbers in, you're going to get the answer of 2 when x is minus 1, minus 2 when x is 0, 2 when x is 1, 8 when x is 2, 10 when x is 3, and 2 when x is 4. Now, what I would do, just to make your life a little bit easier and so that you're not going to make any mistakes, is I would draw them out as coordinates. Because the next thing you're going to have to do is you're going to have to draw the function. Now, so then in the second part, they've given us a graph here. So at -1, it's 2. At 0, it's -2. At 1, it's 2. At 2, it's 8. At 3, it's 10. And at 4, it's 2. The final thing you have to do then is join the graph, or the dots of the graph. So what you're going to do is you're going to draw something very similar to this. And of course you're going to draw it in pencil. I would put in the points maybe in red or green pen so that you can show them exactly, you know where to put them, and hopefully that'll make it much easier to do. Now, again, you should be confident enough of doing all of this from the last video, so I'm not going to spend any more time on it. But the second part is what I was mostly interested in. It says, use your graph to estimate the two roots of f of x, which are in the domain between x is -1 and 4. Now, you know that roots are where the graph crosses the x-axis. And you can see here that the graph crosses the x-axis twice, making sure you're aware that the x-axis is here, and it crosses the x-axis here and here. So by my best estimation, that would be at x equal to -0.5 and x equal to +0.5. So that's this part of the question completely done, and I'm hoping that makes complete sense. Question 8.2 then is going to look at the 2018 paper, and in particular it's going to look at question 8. So it says here, the amount in appropriate units for a certain medicinal drug in the bloodstream t hours after it has been taken can be estimated by the function Ct is equal to -t cubed plus 4.5t squared plus 54t, where t is between 0 and 9. It says for A, use the drug function Ct to show that the amount of drug in the bloodstream 4 hours after the drug has been taken is 224 units. Now, the best thing to do for this is just figure out exactly what everything means. So we need to figure out what C of t means, and we also need to figure out what t equals. Now, it says here that t is hours after it has been taken. So t is time, and it's time in hours. And C of t is, if you look at it again, it says the amount in appropriate units of a certain medicinal drug. So T is the amount of drug. It's not great English, but as long as you understand exactly what it is, it doesn't really matter. So it wants us to see, use the drug function Ct to show the amount of drug in the bloodstream 4 hours after the drug has been taken is 224. So this is quite simple because they've actually told us whether we're going to be right or not. So we need to fill in T with 4. Now, and when we put that into our calculator, we are going to get an answer of 224. So it's correct, and we know that we're right. The second question then says, use the function Ct to complete the following table. So again, what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to sub in t as 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 to figure out what the Ct values are. Again, you can draw your table exactly like I would have done in the last video when we were drawing cubic functions, just so you can get an idea of exactly what it's like. However, for this video, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to fill it in. So when you fill it in, you should get an answer of 118 for t is 2, 175.5 for t is 3, 257.5 for t is 5, 270 for t is 6, 255.5 for t is 7, 208 for t is 8, 121.5 for t is 9. Now, so that's part B completely done. Part C of this question asks us to draw the graph of the function C of t, where t is between 0 and 9. Now, we filled out the table in the last question, so I've just copied the table and you can see it here on the left hand side. So all we have to do now is plot the points. So the first thing you're going to do is, the first point we have is 0, 0. The second point we have is 157.5, which will be approximately here. 2 is 118. 3 is 175.5. 4 is 224. 5 is 257.5. 6 is 270. 7 is 255.5. 8 is 208. 9 is 121.5. So then the final thing you need to do here is you just need to match up the graphs. So you can draw it up. Now yours will be a little bit better because you're drawing it on a piece of paper and making sure you're drawing it in pencil as well. That's part C finished. Part D then says use your graph to estimate each of the following values. In each case, show you're working on the graph above. So the first one says the amount of the drug in the bloodstream after 3.5 hours. So 3.5 would be approximately here. So you're going to draw a line from 3.5 up to the line and across to the units. So for this one, there's going to be about 200 units, and you've shown you're working on the graph. It's really important. The second part says, how long after taking the drug will the amount of the drug in the bloodstream be 100 units? So for this one, what you do is you go to 100, you go across, and you come down. And for this one, the answer will be roughly 1.8 hours. And that's part D completely finished. Question 8.3 looks at the question 5 in 2014 exam paper. This question says the function is defined as x cubed plus 3x squared minus 9x plus 5. It's asking us then find the coordinates for the point of the graph. F cuts the y-axis, and when it cuts the y-axis, x is equal to 0. So to get what y is then, or what f of x is, we just replace all the x's with 0. So we have x cubed plus 3x squared minus 9x plus 5. We need to get f of 0, which is 0 cubed plus 3 times 0 squared minus 9 times 0 plus 5. So the answer we're going to get for that, so f of 0 is going to be equal to 5. Now it wants the coordinates, so we have the x value of 0 and the y value of 5. Part 2 then asks us to verify that the graph of f cuts the x-axis at x is equal to minus 5. So we have here that x is equal to minus 5, so we have to fill it in. We know the function is x cubed plus 3x squared minus 9x plus 5, and in this case we're getting the x value of minus 5, so it's minus 5 cubed plus 3 times minus 5 squared minus 9 times minus 5 plus 5. And the answer we're going to get then is f of minus 5 is equal to 0. So then the answer we get, or the coordinate, is minus 5, 0. So i.e. cuts the x-axis. So we know that this graph f cuts the x-axis at the point x is equal to minus 5. So that's this question finished, and this brings this video to an end, where we were looking at the types of questions that might be asked on cubic functions. If there is any questions or you don't understand anything, just get in contact with me and I will sort it out straight away.